Welcome back to successors to the first episode of the Perfect Setup, a new series in which I test different string setups and some of the most selling rackets until I find the perfect one. Finding the perfect string is up there with some of the most difficult and confusing parts of this extremely complex sport. Some strings work in some rackets and not in others. The purpose of this series is to take away that struggle for you so you can just go out there and play. Now, I used to use the V-Core 98 tool, but I've now decided to change rackets as I just found it's a little too unpredictable at times for me. And I've narrowed it down to these 4 rackets. We've got the Pure Aero 98, the Blade V9 16x19, the Head Gravity Tour, and the Tfight 305s. Now, each episode will give pros and cons of a new setup in all 4 of these rackets. So not only am I finding the perfect setup, you can find your perfect setup to suit your game as well. Now, without further ado, let's get straight into episode 1.
Starting off with the Aero 98, this was strung with the Qualia Sport Torque 125 in the mains and the Glide 125 in the crosses, both at £52. This setup in general I quite enjoyed. It was very controlled but also comfortable on my arm, as I know that this aero can be quite stiff. It also offered me a decent amount of spin. Not crazy, but still pretty good. My ground stroke seemed to get more depth with a slightly higher launch angle, with my slice improving because of the bite on the ball. This setup seemed to allow me to flatten my shots a lot easier than previous strings I've used with the Aero, as I have dabbled with this racket from time to time. My volleys were working well with this setup, as I had good feel and also controlled the ball easily. My serves, as you can guess, were more controlled, showing this setup is just all about the control and touch. Not a lot of free power, but easy direction. My serves are more consistent, but slightly less powerful. I think this setup will be perfect if you are just looking for that control and feel with a racket, with a bit of softness as well, as the glides are a very soft cross. They also lasted quite a long time considering their polyester string. If you want to try the Qualia strings for yourself, then go to qualiasport.com and use the code OBSESSED at checkout for 20% off with no minimum purchase, and head on over to my channel and look at the video where I explain about these strings in detail. And while you're there, don't forget to click the subscribe. Now, moving on to the Blade V9 16x19, strung with Lynx Tour in the mains and the Glide 125 in the crosses, both at £52. This setup had its ups and downs. I personally wasn't the greatest fan with it, as I found it didn't counteract any of the Blade's weaknesses or heavily exaggerate the strengths. There wasn't a lot of spin with this setup, nor a lot of power. I feel like I should have lowered the tension a little bit to get the best out of it. I think £52 was just a little too high for this. And with the Lynx Tour in the mains, it was quite stiff, even with the glides in the cross. But I will say the setup did work well for that flat shot. Gave good control and great direction. I just wish there was a bit more spin, as the blade doesn't offer a lot itself. Even though there was that lack of power and spin, it did mean that the control was really good with it, allowing the volleys to work really well, as it just made it easy to absorb any sort of power and direct it wherever I needed to. The serving, it was a hit and miss. Controlled, so not a lot going out, but would have wanted a lot more power again. I just feel like the next setup should be all about power and spin, so then we can really see what it can do for the blade. Next up, the Gravity Tour. I did a whole review of this racket in which I used this setup, so if you want to see more footage with that, then click on the link above. But it was strung with Torque 125 in the mains at £52 and the Glide 125 in the crosses at £50. This of course is the same setup I used with the Aero, with just the crosses dropped by £2. My ground strokes had ridiculous amounts of spin. Now I think the majority of this is the racket, as the string bed is very open and of course there's a 16 by 19, but I think it was also helped with this setup as well. With the setup also being about control, it stopped the racket being so wild on the shots, allowing me to place them a little better. It did take a slight bit of power away from the racket, but that's just what I felt was needed from it. I'd say the volleys were very good considering how headlight this racket is. It gave great control and feel on them, allowing me to direct them easy, which shows that it's more the setup, because that was consistent between that and the Aero. My serves were, dare I say, amazing with this. The power came from the racket being headlight and the racket just having power in general, but the control of the strings allowed me to increase the consistency with them and dial them into the perfect speed and reliability. Finally, moving on to the Tecnifibre Tfight 305s. Strung with Torque Squared 125 in the mains at £51 and the Ghostwire 122 in the crosses at £49. I'd say this setup seemed to transform the Tecnifibre for the better. My ground strokes got way more spin than a Tecnifibre should be getting, which just seemed to make my game way better than when I first used it in my review. A lot more balls were dropping in and I was able to get top spin from any height, but still able to flatten the shot with ease, so it could just do everything. As we know, the Tecnifibre is a closed string bed with an 18 by 19 string pattern, so it shouldn't be able to get the spin I was able to produce with it, but somehow it did. The setup also didn't take away any of the power that the Tecnifibre offers, and the slicing worked a treat with it, as the added feel and bite that the strings gave me made it easy to direct the slices low and over the net. The ghost wire cross also softened the racket nicely, meaning that the racket didn't feel as stiff as usual, allowing me to hit with it longer than I've been able to before. But because my elbow is flaring quite easily at the moment, I did still find it was too stiff for me, so I had to put it down. But I think if you don't have joint issues or don't swing too hard, then it won't be an issue for you and you can try this setup.
As always, thank you so much for watching the video. Please let me know in the comments down below if there are any setups you want to see me try in these 4 rackets. And while you're there, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe on this video. It really helps me out. And I will see you in the next one.